Tony's show of the day.
Yes, I am wearing the same flannel. It's, you know, laziness and deja vu, and we're talking about Groundhog Day. So Groundhog Day transferred from the West End. It already won the Olivier for Best Musical. And that, you know, sets a show up with a very particular set of expectations when it hits America. And like, just ask Jimmy. We can talk for ages about the differences between the West End crowd and the Broadway crowd, but, you know, it is the only one of these four shows nominated for Best Musical that comes from the West End, and so I think it's interesting to point that out. The other thing that really strikes me about Groundhog Day actually is perhaps best contextualized by Stephen Sondheim. Not one of his works, but actually Sondheim himself. He was approached, I don't know, early on to do an adaptation of Groundhog Day, the movie, to turn it into a musical, and turned down the project. And he, I believe the quote is, "To turn Groundhog Day the musical would be akin to gilding the lily," which is a misquoted Shakespeare phrase. But the idea that Groundhog Day, the Bill Murray movie, is too perfect to adapt into a musical. And that is the context this musical sits in. An audience member going into this musical comes from that context. There are, like a lot of popular commodity movie musical or movie to musical adaptations, I bet there are very few people going into this show who don't at least know the basic conceit of this story we call Groundhog Day. You know, like this is a storytelling technique that Into the Woods capitalizes on. You already know these stories, and so we're gonna skip some of the parts or blast through some of the beginning of this. And Groundhog Day the musical does that. Days 1, 2, and 3 go boom, 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 boom. Like, we set up right away, yes, these things repeat, and here are the things that repeat. And so the question remains, Sondheim's question remains, what is the musical going to do that the movie didn't, that is going to make things better? It's why there's a lot of pressure going in and developing a recognizable commodity. There are expectations of you before you even put pen to paper. And certainly, I think the Groundhog Day musical does live up to and exceed expectations. It does a really good job of taking the basics of the story of the Groundhog Day Bill Murray movie, but not sticking so closely to the actual, you know, screenplay of the movie. Like, they're not trying hard to pull out those recognizable quotes that are gonna make the audience go like, haha, that was in the movie. You know, that was something that Spamalot did that I think maybe wasn't the best choice, was take big chunks, word for word, straight out of the movie, which this musical doesn't do so much. Like, good choice. And then, of course, Tim Minchin's work shines. I am so happy that this musical comedian has found his place in musical theater. You know, in Matilda, which was for a younger audience, you got to see a lot of his clever wordplay, but in Groundhog Day, it comes back with full force. Like, you know, who needs enemas with friends like these? Or the, you know, looking for your knight in shining armor, but instead you'll spend your night's home shining armor. Your night's in shining armor. Like, ooh, it's so clever. It's wonderful. Like, that is the opportunity I think everyone should take when writing musical theater. Like, it feels like such a secret to prospective musical theater writers, but the idea is you know beforehand what your characters are going to say, and so you can make them be a little more clever than the average human being. I see a lot of you know, early work of authors or musicals that don't do so great, and they try really, really hard sometimes, especially with contemporary musical theater, for like accuracy to naturalistic speaking, like trying to recreate how human beings sound in real life, and it's not my style, you know? You, like, what wonderful opportunity you have that, like, you know the story before the audience does. Like, that's your magic trick. That's what lets you be a playwriting magician, is you know which sleeve you've hidden the rabbit in. Anyway, a little off track. One of the other magnificent feats about Groundhog Day is it sticks to the concept through even the music, right? Like, you could easily do a different song every day or not stick so closely to the same musical themes, but, you know, there are some exact recreations with minor differences throughout. It's like, it's, you know, theme and variations taken to its extreme. And to hear how that plays out, like, that's the beauty of musical theater. You get to tell your story all the way down to the notes on the page. And Groundhog Day does it great. Also, everyone's talking about Andy Karl's injury, so it's time to talk about Andy Karl's injury. He tore his ACL, I believe, a couple previews before opening night, doing a stunt on stage, doing some kind of flip or dance move or something. Like, real serious injury that makes it actually pretty difficult to do your job of standing and walking and moving and dancing as an actor in a piece of musical theater. And a couple nights before opening, this is why this is a big deal. So, official Tony rules state, you must perform on the opening night of your show to be eligible for whatever category you might be eligible in the Tony Awards. Had Karl been so injured that he could not perform on opening night, he would not be eligible for the Tony nomination that he has right now. This is why this is a big deal. This is why this is making the news. And, you know, of course he should perform, and of course he should be lauded for going on. These are the sort of things that make me nervous, because, like, they're played out in the media as like, yes, the show must go on, we shall make it happen. Like, that's the trope of things, you know, that's in every theater dramatization that's ever existed ever. And I think it's a little dangerous sometimes. Like, you know, sometimes the show shouldn't go on. Maybe, certainly not in this case, it's just fine. But, like, you hear all these, like, horror stories of people like, well, you know, you may have injured him with that not quite fake enough prop of a Sweeney Todd knife that you used to actually slit someone's throat on stage, but the show must go on. No, stop. Stop the show. Anyway, Groundhog Day is good. I like maybe 70 to 80% of it. I really like Stuck. I really like Playing Nancy. I actually like some of the songs that aren't repeated songs. The concept of, like, and tomorrow there will be sun, like, there's a lot of good metaphor in the lyricism of it. I do think, you know, it is an interesting, the movie itself I would have never pegged as adaptable musical theater material. Something about the repeated episodic nature of it feels like it would be hard to adapt, and I think they've done a pretty decent job of it. But yeah, it's definitely, of the four best musicals, maybe only just by a sliver, it's a little further down my probably gonna win the Tony list. Which is not to say that it's bad. It's, you know, Tonys are a competition of comparison, and it's just a great season this year, and Groundhog Day is, like, just really, really good and not excellent and stellar. But who knows? Anyways, Groundhog Day. You should go listen to it, because it's great. Anyways, Groundhog Day. You should go listen to it, because it's great. You think that kind of joke will ever get old? Not a lot of thematic Groundhog Day. Anyway, I'll see you next time.